good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is my podcast called Jar of Marbles. This week I wanted to talk a little bit about old school. Once upon a time it was my norm. Being over 60 now, that was just, how life was, and we now have this reference word or words that, oh yes, that's old school, isn't it? So, is it? And does it have to be? Anyway, I was just sort of thinking about it and how old school in some ways has, its place in ritual in terms of things that we used to do in order to be helpful or kind to one another. It was modelled to us sometimes by our parents, sometimes by the community at large. But anyway, I hope that you enjoy it. It's so good that you're here. I'm so pleased. I'm always so pleased that you do. Probably more surprised. But anyway, I hope that you enjoy it. And yeah, let's go. Unlikely bedfellows, I thought. But as I thought on it, old school and ritual, I pondered how we humans benefit from creating ritual, and some enjoy making something that could be seen as ordinary into the extraordinary, making a time, an event, making the time memorable, tattooed or perhaps written gently within our minds so that it can live on and brought to life when we sit indulging in enjoyable recollections of past events. I was thinking about various activities that we were taught, encouraged and modelled by our elders and the community alike, some of which do not seem at the time as a life skill, but in fact does lend to having a more skilled and perhaps happier life. Happier. Enjoying massively the little things can be severely underrated, and yet the happiness some old school skills bring are worth a bunch to be benefited from tenfold. Writing in cursive, for example, may not be seen anymore as a life skill, certainly is like very old school, and I could be showing my age, but it is seen as an old school skill to manoeuvre your hand in such a way to be able to write creatively. And boy, it just looks so nice when you write or you receive a card or a letter. It was how we were taught as children, in my case 56 some years ago, and many others many moons before my time. And when I started writing letters again, it was like a hidden force had taken over my hand and I was squiggling all out of control, and I was unable to recognise my handwriting because I used to be able to write quite neatly, so a challenge it was. To regain control of my hand, to write with pride, the distance between my eye, my brain and my hand to suddenly seem so far, almost disconnected. I myself, when I receive a letter or a card, I really love beautiful penmanship or penwomanship, and I appreciate more than ever what it takes to still be savvy with a pen. I was looking through my daughter's guest signing wedding book, and aside some legible wishes that had been cursive styled written, much of the contents my daughter's guests had written were just like paragraphs of scrawl. Admittedly, these were transcribed at the end of the night when they may have had some champagne consumption, one of those outmoded life skills that I have always appreciated. And I love to see fine-looking handwriting. I have heard what is the point to bothering with handwriting when most of our script is in fact typing? And yes, there is that, but I hope it doesn't become so rare as to being a society that scribbles instead of taking satisfaction in the handwritten word. Not to mention being able to actually read it. Like doctors with their ill-famed reputation for dreadful handwriting. I, like you, have probably observed a chemist on receiving a doctor's script say a bit too loudly, "Oh no, Dr. Doolittle," none of them can read his writing. Then they have to ring the doctor's consulting rooms to get the correct interpretation on what the scrawl says. It was plainly a wriggly line with a full stop. That's another thing. Writing letters, I've talked about that in episode 1. I had some interesting views and comments, and it turns out that there are people who would love to be letter writing again. It is worthy of being a club, a letter writing club. Let me know if you're interested. I love writing letters and receiving them. It's validation of some of the truly good things in life, things that matter to me, and I'm sure there's people out there too, that go, Joe, I'd love to be able to go to the mailbox on occasion and actually have a letter for me. That thoughtfulness and taking the time to do so, I don't take it for granted. It's life boosting and reminds yourself that you're somehow important, and that's a good thing. Picture this, downtown Sydney, standing next to the letterbox in front of my home with my freshly delivered letter in hand, almost saying to the neighbourhood, "Yes, G, I have a letter. It's for me. Yes. No, it's not a bill. It's a letter. What's that, G? A letter? What? Didn't think that people do that anymore? Oh, yes, there are a few of us, G. We make the effort. We love the notion of it. What's that, G? Not for you? All right. Thanks for your feedback." Wink. You can see your name printed or inscribed beautifully on the envelope, and you try to savour the moment because you read the letter in a flash. You take note of the beautiful designed paper folded neatly inside the matching envelope, if you're lucky, and the sensibly placed stamp before you read it again, and recheck the back of the paper to ensure that you have gobbled up every word and feel satisfied that you have, in fact, read all of it and there isn't a secret PS or perhaps a PPS or a PPPS. I don't know if you've ever had a letter with a number of those, or is that just me that does that? You know how you keep on remembering things? PS, by the way. Anyway, so the customary ritual begins. The ritual begins! That's right, Bob. I was wondering where you were. Please keep in mind that I never used the word ritual while performing them for years, even the way someone makes a pot of tea using their finest china. Perhaps some homemade biscuits, to me, is ritual. I have to say this because many have not been exposed to lovely things, simple acts that result in the meaning of kept promises and ever trusted etiquette of sorts. These rituals can have the standing of a long cherished memory, which maybe has always been part of your life, or you've reintroduced it years later into your own. I know it's something that I had reintroduced into my life so many times at different stages where I think, you know what, I haven't brought out my good china lately, or I haven't baked some biscuits. I think I'll do that. And, and then sometimes the life, it all falls into place where you've got your biscuits, you've got your nice cup of tea, you've got a letter to read, and maybe you might even have flowers in your vase. I mean, is that asking for too much? I don't think so. Anyway, so you've got your fresh coffees made, your fresh pot of tea, the letter placed formally next to the vase of flowers. I'm waiting for the coffee to brew so that I can be seated and enjoy the entire experience. After reading the letter, I don't want to put the letter away. I place it on the side table in my bedroom so I can read it again later. Later, if you're not a letter writing person, it probably sounds a bit odd, but it is good as a gentle meditation where you mindfully savour it all. I love ritual, the ceremonial act, specific series of actions, creating mindfully is genuine mindfulness and presence elevating. Too much? A little bit over the top? Well, I don't care. I like that sort of thing, and I hope that you do too. Anyway, the lighting of candles when I am with resolve, creating an atmosphere, whether I come into my studio, whether it is to create music, write, or create the podcast, I have an area, an altar of sorts, if you will, where I have tea lights and assorted candles simply for the setting of an atmosphere, the creating of a vibe. I'm so grateful that I don't have to struggle with flints, bang them together in order to create sparks, so maybe I'll get to light my candles. That'd be a vibe blow, wouldn't it? A tad tedious and monotonous. But these are the things I think about as the candles take on their own life. I might sit back, enjoy the flames and the light that comes, the sense of comfort and a line of relief that is felt. It's the slowing right down and truly relaxing. I love that. I get my best ideas outside the shower when a flood of ideas arrive. Another old school bizzo, I reckon, is manners. It is now sometimes a little astounding when people are particularly courteous. In fact, it is noteworthy. I can hear myself saying thank you repeatedly when being asked questions by the server, say like, credit card, cash, do you require a bag? And I'll respond with, yes, please, no, thank you, and a thank you, receive my purchase and receipt, and I say thank you. And many times I've observed that I'm actually the only one that's saying thank you. I'm the only one that's saying please, and I'm buying from them and not one thank you from the seller. It's not always, but it just, I think, wow. And it's a dead end kind of transaction. Mostly I quietly reflect that, obviously, the training that goes on or is not going on in jobs, and it doesn't maybe involve, the use of manners, which is foolish, a foolish business practice, because whether it's a haircut or purchasing a dress or going to get a pint of milk, how you are made to feel can be the singular motive why you return. It is slowly disappearing, but I shall be thanking and yes, pleasing till the cows come home. Cows. That's right, Bob. I'm glad that you're listening. So if you see someone who I call has a good light, thank them for it. It will help them to keep their light on, so to speak. It is an art to rise above the whims of others. So the light might be that you are the only one saying thank you with intention, even if they're not saying it, a thank you back, is keeping the light on and saying why you are thanking them for the wonderful service. I really appreciate you. This has driven my kids crazy at different parts of their development. Interestingly, their good manners were often commented on. They all have lovely manners. Someone has to insist on it, and that was that, Marbles. It's like giving way to traffic while driving. If we all stop giving way, none of us are going to get to our destination with ease. Or the wave you give when someone has let you into heavy traffic, just a little wave of acknowledgement. But now it's got so weird. People act like crazy beavers behind the wheel. It is where how they really feel about their day or their lives is revealed. The entitled non-wave is a real animal where they're not often enough courteous acknowledgements on the road. Depending on what you do through the day and considering how many hours many spend behind the wheel to and from home, that may be your only time to extend a fellow human a bit of respect. Cut them a break. Let them think they're winning, getting the metaphorical green light, getting in front of you. Wave back already. What's wrong with you? Anyway, it's not like returning shopping carts and leaving them in a car park spot is like, really, tricky and takes, a big brain. Wow, it's such a bad look. And you know what? I've noticed there's a lot of people in my age group, maybe a little bit younger, but it's really the older ones. I don't know. It's just doesn't help the world to turn easier. The ones that don't return their trolleys, they will be the ones that complain about how bad things have got in the world. But it has to happen at ground level, and it is the little things, and it's the bloody right thing to do. I happen to think the world is a beautiful place, and so as I return my trolley, because it's decent and it's quite simple, I do not appreciate coming back to my car and someone has left a trolley there next to my vehicle, even worse, right on my car. Even every little bit counts. And while we might not see the benefits of how this can help others, just know that it does. Now, back to driving. If someone lets me in and gives plenty of space for me to do it, in that instant, I feel so much respect for that driver. And a warm feeling of renewal comes over me. I don't think, yeah, good, so you should, yeah, let me in, right? Never. A quick wave and a mouth thank you, and I am grateful. To say it is the little things maybe are not so little anymore because of road rage, all the more important to do your part. Many of us out there are. There will always be the ding-dongs, the unreachables, but that is no reason to throw it all in. Don't let the ding-dongs win. There are many of us, including myself, who care and are not going to stop. It's just not in some of our genetical material. Or what other people who walk, those people that walk four abreast across in a mall and you're trying to get around them and they're not going to break their hold. So I stand still, not to be an activist or anything, or because I hope they fall over and flatten their noses, but because the shopping trolley I'm pushing, the wheels are so, well, as usual, so badly out of alignment that I am not going to put my back out to get around the Mary Poppins review. Fair dinkum, not happening. Fair dinkum. That's right, fair sucker the save, Bob. And what about cobblers? You could get your favourite shoes or boots resold and it smelled all leathery and oily, and a man who seemed to be right out of a Harry Potter scene would just sort of appear from a ridiculously small corner where he also worked fixing shoes. Boots and shoes of many designs and colours that had been fixed were sort of dotted and slotted everywhere with cardboard dockets tied on the ends with dangling string. I always liked going into cobbler shops, and I hoped another customer would be there before me so I could have a decent gander all around me. I just loved how cosy it all was. I do enjoy forensically dismantling places that pique my interest. I'd spoken to our cobbler several years ago when he was saying how times were changing and that shoes were coming en masse, poorly made and as cheap as chips. No one will want their shoes fixed anymore, he lamented, or at least not enough folk to keep his doors open. He said it would cost more to fix the shoes than what the shoes would actually cost. He spoke of the increased rubbish that was coming as consumers would be throwing out clothes and shoes universally far more frequently. This was his prediction, and he was spot on. Subsequently, he did close his doors shortly after. Another thing, adding and subtracting in our heads. I have recalled times where I have heard a much older generation judge other generations for their lack of ability to add in their heads. With the introduction of so many changes in so many levels in society, it knocked out the requirement. And on top of that, it was struck out of education systems. Suddenly I was buying calculators for my children as part of their school supplies. So someone made that decision and critical thinking started to slip by. Part-time jobs my daughters had while still attending high school meant that they were learning to press buttons that had the prices pre-coded, and so no thinking was really essential in giving monetary change. Now, if the young ones are not being encouraged, taught and challenged in that way, it is not their fault. It's not even about fault. To add and subtract, multiply and divide became a tiny part of the mathematical curriculum, and thinking it out in their heads frequently just wasn't happening. It was happening in our home, though. I was a bit of a sergeant major with absorbing the formulas, and to this day it still runs chills through their veins.
You were a sergeant major, I believe that.
What would you know, Bob? You're just a figment of my imagination. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was returning RSVPs. Once upon a time, they were sent back almost immediately so that people could organise their event with ease. Now it is the norm that people won't probably return their RSVP, but we'll be happy to roll up for a free meal and drinks. I have seen this time and time again where people shrug their shoulders apathetically and not having heard any word from people that they've invited who may or may not be coming to their wedding, and they have to run around trying to get confirmations. They tend to then overorder, increase their, which then of course increases their budget to accommodate people who couldn't even do the bare minimum. It's so tacky. It's all on its head and makes it so stressful when it should be joyous. Is that the romantic in me speaking?
You're so romantic.
You keep that to yourself, Bob.
Bob's the word.
Thanks, Bob. Maybe it is, but I love the elevation of someone rising to be their best self, and in turn, it is matched. I think it's a gorgeous thing. Holding a door. You have to be on your guard now. If you're behind someone who's yielding the door, there's a good chance that person in front will let the door fly into you without a glance. I think once you've hit a certain age, you become permanently unimpressed by a lot of shit. Coming from very different eras, I've seen different realities. There was a time when we always held a door. And often there would be more than one person happy to hold the door, and we always acknowledged the act. We just didn't walk through like we were King Farouk. We always be saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, it was really sweet. It was just really, really nice, and that was just the norm. I don't know whether you have ever heard of the bomb brush man, but many years ago in New Zealand, we used to have the bomb brush man who was a door-to-door salesman, and it was a common occurrence. A man with many brushes, awkwardly standing at your front door. It was quite amusing, if nothing else. But much like now, except more than often, it's someone trying to sell you electricity, solar system deals, or save the panda, and they often come after dark. Have you noticed that? Anyway, back to rituals. There are a few accepted rituals in our Western culture for birth, death, marriage. In the last few years, people have marked divorce by throwing a party. I hear, sister, geez, why not? With our ever-changing landscape, other rituals have to be injected into our lives, marking change or elevating aspects of our lives, lest we rot away in everydayism, having to watch out for the isms. In my family, we've marked certain growths and changes that typically would not be talked about, let alone danced about. That could be that special time of the month, pooing in the potty for the first time, drinking cordial out of fine crystal wine glasses on any school night dinner, swinging out of trees on thick ropes to welcome my children home from school, making huge blueberry muffins as a mark of just for you. Setting a couch on fire to have a bonfire to watch. We were on property miles from anywhere and anyone. Buying paper from the Jehovah's Witnesses to rip up for our nativity setting. Spray painting cicada shells for decorations for the Christmas tree. There had been a huge influx of cicadas one night, and in the morning in our back courtyard was a mass of empty cicada shells. So I bought some gold spray paint and created some decorations. One of my daughters was horrified and said, "I'm surprised you haven't dragged in some roadkill for under the tree." I laughed and she laughed. No, not really, she didn't, but I did. I laughed. Because to have a long view in life means that one day she would remember that year we had cicada shells in the Christmas tree, probably choose to not talk about such things, and I would probably be the only one still laughing. But sometimes I swear I laugh so hard at my own shenanigans that I have no noise coming out, and I'm sitting there clapping like a seal. Oh God, I'm so blessed. I've always known that I am, no matter what the naysayers say. Come and sit at my table anytime and have a laugh with me. Life is spectacular. I guess you could say I'm a get a dress from a thrift shop and open a bottle of champagne kind of girl. We are all many things, and creating ritual on purpose, with purpose, makes life magical very quickly. I've been doing this for years, and let me tell you, it's true. My measuring stick is this: who's having a good time and who is a nasty wizened up noodlehead? Which one would you rather be? And just to mix it up, is taking that fun attitude out to the world by holding the door. Holds the lift door, letting the woman in on the heavy traffic, complimenting on people's appearance. And I say thank you when someone lets me in, or holds the door open for me, sincerely and audibly, when my cooking is appreciated, when someone loves my art or a musical composition. It thrills me to bits. It's called manners. And is it old school? Always thought of it as a life skill. People warm to people who are kind and appreciative. It is how we are wired. I'd say to my adult daughters when they were very little, manners are magic. And I'd say, so what are manners? And they go, magic. It makes you stand out without even trying. You're making someone's day by saying thank you or excuse me or mighty fine hat there. Where did you get that hat? And we may call it an old school skill. It is enduring and a reminder that the world is filled with beauty and wonderful people. People are great. It is now fashionable to say people are not great, but I cannot be a part of that gang because I know too many truly amazing souls. Now, look, I'm going to have to, think about shooting off soon. You've got me all wound up and loose. I'm losing myself in the good vibes, and I do like me a good vibe. I hope that you have enjoyed this week's offering, and I hope your day is a good one and that you are proud to demonstrate a standard that you love to live by. I'm waving digitally to you. I just realised that really sounds terrible, but you know what I mean. I'm waving spiritually to you and I'm saying, yes, queens, your spirit never ages. It just skips along happily waiting for you to remember. Look, I just want to thank you, as always, for popping by. It is always lovely that you come. And say good day to the family and the canary for me, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.